This is 9/11 Freefall.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of 9/11 Freefall. I'm the host, Andy Steele. My guest tonight is Bernie Suarez. He is back. If you remember, he was one of the founding hosts of this show back a long time ago, 2012. Seems like yesterday. My God, how fast time goes by. But he is back tonight. He's going to be talking about what his group is doing out there in L.A. to spread the word, doing some tablings, and talking to various people that they come across about the 9/11 controlled demolition evidence, opening eyes out there in the City of Angels, and got some interesting stories and some good tips on how you can do the same. What Bernie's doing is not very hard. You just got to have the ambition. You just got to have the knowledge, a little bit of knowledge about the evidence, which getting a copy of Beyond Misinformation can help you do. And then you go out there and have fun doing it, because that's what makes life worth living, and makes the job of exposing the crime of the century, the controlled demolitions of Towers 1, 2, and 7 on 9/11, what makes that job more easy to do as we move forward and go towards our goal of getting what we want. So stay tuned. I'll play that interview with Bernie a little bit later on in the show. I'm going to go over some news from AE 9/11 Truth, and I'm probably not going to sit here and read it word for word. You can read the articles down at the website, ae911truth.org. But the first one is, Northeasterners fired up by screenings of firefighters, architects, and engineers. And what I love about this article, when you go to it, there was a picture put together of colonial people holding up the video of firefighters, architects, and engineers, and the Beyond Misinformation booklet. And there's also something mounted on the side of an old town hall, I guess it is, that they're standing at, with a picture of the 9/11 Commission report with holes in it. And I actually remember 9/11 Truth several years ago. When I say several years ago, I'm talking like it must have been 07 or 08, where they had a Boston Tea Party right there in Boston and dumped a 9/11 Commission report, at least one giant one with holes in it, into the Boston Harbor. And I couldn't go because I was sick. I got sick doing activism for another issue, standing outside in the cold, and I just could not make it. I wish I had gone to it, because this was an important event in the history of the movement. So this picture here reminds me of that. I think it's a very clever one. And no doubt, had the people of that time been putting up with a lie like the one we had put on us with 9/11, they would have been doing the same stuff that we are doing, if not then some. So we come from good stock in this country, kind of people that see problems and do something about it. We're just following in that tradition. But the article goes over the various stops that Richard Gage made on his tour, and it lists all of them, and just kind of goes over some of the interesting stories that took place during these, and interesting Q&As and things that were observed. So you can read that article at the site. But this is why it's so important to get people to these events when they happen. That's why these events do take place, is so that people have a chance to engage Richard Gage and whoever else may be speaking at these, and be able to ask them after the presentations whatever lingering questions they may have, or may be able to address any doubts that they have, but to have that kind of back and forth. The other article that I wanted to talk about is from January the 29th. It's called Matt Campbell Seeks Supporters for His Legal Campaign. This is by 9/11 Truth Outreach and other contributors. And this is about Matt Campbell. If you remember, Matt Campbell was on this show a year ago talking about his court issue with the BBC because he refused to pay his BBC license fee, because if he paid for his BBC license fee, he would be supporting terrorism, which would put him in violation of a terrorism act that was passed in the year 2000. And he doesn't want to do that. And of course, supporting BBC would be supporting terrorism because of the support that they give to the terrorists, because the overwhelming evidence shows that the buildings were brought down in controlled demolitions, and BBC has given only one-sided coverage of this issue, has refused to even shine a neutral spotlight on it, on the evidence the AE 9/11 Truth and others have brought forth. And there's even some questions about, why it reported the collapse of Building 7 20 or so minutes before it happened. Jane Stanley is standing in front of the building. It's right there behind her, and she's saying the building has already fallen down. And this should have been an unprecedented event. It was an unprecedented event, if you want to believe the official story. 47-story steel frame high-rise falls to the ground in 7 seconds. Should not have been predicted, should not have been expected, but there you go. They're not only watching it happen, but they're predicting it ahead of time, as if they had some kind of psychic vision or something. Don't know. But Matt Campbell did not want to pay that fee. Well, he is looking to do more to get justice for his brother Jeff, who died that day. And if you go to the last section of this article, I'm going to read it with you. I'll read it for you. After weighing possible next steps, Matt and his colleagues are planning to use the legal process available to them to petition the U.S. Attorney General to call for a fresh inquest. New evidence that will be used to support this renewed inquest is the announcement that further remains of Jeff were identified in May of 2013. These additional remains, coupled with more evidence that has been compiled and documented of the controlled demolition of the Twin Towers, may be enough to bring the issue to the coroner's court, according to Matt. He and his team have a meeting with the QC barrister who is interested in taking on the case. The designation QC stands for Queen's Counsel, in case you weren't aware of that. The meeting will assess the merits of the claim and what, if any, further evidence is required. Matt has initiated a crowdfunding effort to help defray the cost of this new legal route. He is asking for support from those who wish to help to, 1, obtain justice for Jeff, 2, get into court records the scientific evidence for controlled demolition as documented by AE 9/11 Truth, and 3, expose the official narrative of 9/11 for what it is. A lie that, according to Matt, started the mendacious, meretricious war on terror, which has killed thousands of servicemen and women and millions of innocent men, women, and children. And if you actually read the full article from the beginning, you'll see that that Matt's brother Jeff was expected to be attending a seminar in the tower that day when he died, and that kind of touches me a little bit because, I know people who are busy professionals who attend these things. I just can't imagine, hearing that they're going to attend a seminar and then never coming back from it. Think about the people in those kinds of jobs who do those kinds of, attend those kinds of things for their work. Could be a significant other, could be a sibling, could be a parent if you're a younger person. Them going to it and never coming back from it. Just kind of heightens the tragedy when you can identify with it in some way. So it should provide fuel for you out there in the listening audience, if you don't have enough already, for wanting to get this information out. So here are 3 ways you can help Matt. First, you can contribute to his crucial crowdfunding campaign. This is an initial step towards justice for his brother. And you can also like his Justice for Jeff Facebook page and ask your friends to like it too. As well, you can follow him on Twitter. And folks, if you go to ae911truth.org, you click the news tab and find this article. All of these pages are linked within the article at the very bottom of the page, so you don't even really have to search for them that hard. You just click on the links, go right to the page, and do exactly what you are instructed to do. Participate in the crowdfunding. Like the page, follow him on Twitter, and get the word out, man. I mean, we still have an alternative media out there. We still have citizen journalists all over the world and bloggers writing about the things that the corporate media won't write about. Well, we need you out there writing articles about this right here. All right, this is why we have alternative media, and this is why the people of America and the world are being called on in this important series of events in history to do the right thing. Just like Matt Campbell is doing the right thing in the name of his brother to try to find justice for him. So they need all the support they can get. The people who are out there on the front lines putting their own names and putting their own money and energy and blood, sweat, and tears into this movement. There are lots of them, folks. I mean, so many unselfish people out there doing whatever they can to just get the word out about this. And the more people who are participating, the more hands on deck, I have no doubt that we're going to have an impact. It's like a slow impact. It's like a slow burn. But just because, and this comes up in the interview that I'm going to play in just a few minutes, but just because you don't have a new investigation next week should not affect how much energy you put into this effort. And I compare it to people who volunteer with charities that focus on curing diseases. Now, they may not have a cure next week. They may know they may not get a cure for the disease within a few years, many decades. But that doesn't stop them from participating. It doesn't stop them from trying to find a cure for the disease and raise money for it. Well, the same should be applied here with 9/11 Truth also. All right, because the big lie of 9/11 is a disease, and we got to cure it with the scientific evidence. So that's the way we should look at it. That's how we should participate in this movement, and that should be the fuel that moves us forward in getting justice for people like Matt's brother Jeff. So check out that article on the ae911truth.org website, like I said. All right, before I play my interview with Bernie Suarez, we're going to do what we do every week. We're going to take 10 seconds of silence to remember the victims of 9/11, their families, and all the people who died in the wars that followed 9/11. We'll do that beginning now. And that's 10 seconds.
If we're in a free country, why are we afraid to just talk about an event that was the most traumatic event in our history? I originally believed the official story. I aggressively defended it. When I first started cracking open that little window that there could be possibly more to this story, I went through every emotion, just like probably a lot of you here who didn't originally believe it or consider it are going through. And I didn't want to believe it. I came up with every excuse not to believe it.
Any building that succumbs to fire, that collapses, starts usually with large gradual deformations, and the building will begin to fall over, not straight down through the path of what was the greatest resistance. These buildings exploded. We have witnesses that hear sounds of explosions.
We started walking down the stairs. We made it to the 8th floor. Big explosion.
You'd get down below and you'd see molten steel running down the channel rails. Like you're in a foundry.
Yeah, like lava.
Like lava.
A volcano.
This is all direct evidence of explosive controlled demolition. Interesting thing is fire can't create any one of these, let alone all 10.
If the FDNY and other firefighters start speaking out about this, this is going to explode, and it's going to open a lot of people's eyes to what really happened. Make this a normal thing to talk about so that this will spread like wildfire. It's starting now. From speaking out and starting this website and meeting Richard and a lot of the other incredible people here tonight, I've also met some military intelligence officers that have taught me a lot. And I asked one of them, how do we win? We can't get through the media. We can't get through most of our friends and family because it's too scary to talk about. How do we do this? And he said, it's easy, Eric. You just shine the light. And he said, just come from a place of love and not fear. Shine the light.
The views expressed on this show by guests and the host on issues outside of the 9/11 controlled demolition evidence are the opinions of those individuals alone and do not necessarily reflect those of architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth.
Bernie Suarez is a revolutionary writer with a background in medicine, psychology, and information technology. He's a former host of this very show, and he's also the creator of Truth and Art TV, where he shares articles and videos about issues that raise our consciousness and offers solutions to our current problems. And believe me, folks, we have many. We'll be talking about that today. Bernie, welcome back to the show.
Andy, my friend, it is a pleasure and an honor to be back on 9/11 Freefall. I do appreciate all your efforts all these years, and again, I'm very happy to be back. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, you belong here. It's like this is a house that you lived in at a certain point. When you come back, it's like your old room is waiting for you. All the old posters are still on the wall. I'm just happy to have you back and be able to spend this time with you. So I guess we're just going to catch up. What have you been up to since you were on here last?
Well, Andy, I've been as you indicated there. I do have my web project, truthandarttv.com, and I've written literally hundreds and hundreds of articles over the years about different issues, including 9/11. But of course, I focus on a myriad of issues to focus on social justice and the pursuit of truth. So I've been working on that for a long time. I completed a book not very long ago, just recently, and people can get that and check that out on truthandarttv.com. And I've been involved in a local group here in Los Angeles, where recently I had to kind of gather the troops and sort of restart a group that we had out here in LA for many, many years. We had to kind of regroup and start all over again. So I have a local group that I'm the organizer of, and of course we are just getting going, and we're trying to do things to help implement social justice on various issues.
You're very busy. I know that feeling. And getting a group started out of nothing is something that few people can do, but I know you can. And it's not just based out of nothing. I mean, a lot of these people were meeting at prior, but you're kind of cementing things, bringing it back to the main mission, and I salute you for it. So if anybody's out there in LA and wants to get involved in some local action on 9/11 or other issues, Bernie is the guy to contact. And they can do that through your website, right? Truth and Art TV?
They can do that, or they can go straight to the group website, where it's called wearechangelosangeles.org. The website had to be restructured all over again. There's a group still remaining, an older group, the older version of We Are Change Los Angeles. There's a lot of things regarding truth was compromised in that group. So the people that were attending that group decided, let's create another We Are Change. So we checked with Luke Radowski, everything looked good. So we actually have what now is the only official chapter of We Are Change in Los Angeles. And that group, people can go there to wearechangelosangeles.org and then follow the instructions. There's a page there where they can actually fill out a verification form. It's actually a questionnaire where they can answer some questions, and then from there on, with the steering committee, we'll decide whether that person will be allowed into the group. It is a private membership type of group, so we're trying to gather together people that actually care and people that want to be involved in creating change.
Well, that is what we're all about here, too. We focus on the 9/11 issue with the science, and it takes a lot of people out in the streets, though, to bring this to other people's attention. A lot of great activists we never even hear about. I try to bring them on. I try to have as many featured so that the audience out there can be inspired, can hear someone, may sound like them, may remind them of themselves in some way, and it kind of puts that idea in their minds that, hey, I can do that too. It's very simple. We always talk about simple things done well every day that's going to win this war for us. I really believe that. So, again, this is kind of why I like having you on, because you are a street action warrior. You are like the Hercules or He-Man out there of 9/11 truth activism on the ground level. So give our audience an idea of what are some of the things that you've been doing over the years, you and your group, and some of the things that your group is going to be doing.
Well, yeah. Well, first I want to say I was the assistant organizer of the old We Are Change, and we had an organizer who didn't really who took over about 3 years ago, a little more than that. And the first thing he said was no more. He wasn't interested in doing any more activism for 9/11 specifically. Of course, myself and a very close friend of mine, who's a strong activist as well, we decided that wasn't going to be the case. So we've been doing street tablings in different parts of LA, where I guess in LA, in California, we have a thing called free speech zones, right? Welcome to the new world here. Where you can't just freely speak out wherever you want to. So, but what we designate certain areas, which are highly traveled by shoppers and people that, like to enjoy their weekends and that kind of stuff. And so, we've been doing tablings, and in these tables, we have under the We Are Change banner, and it's a kind of combination, We Are Change and the Truth in Our TV, banner that I've worked so hard on. So we do a combination there, and then we'll have a table. We've done these tablings in the past. We focused mostly on 9/11, and so we use mostly the material available by architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. A lot of these scientific papers and the flyers and all the different materials that are available through architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth. So we generally focus on the science. We've found that when it comes to 9/11, you got to stick with the forensic evidence. So we firmly believe, myself, my partner, and those that support us, that is the best and most effective way to get the information through. It's no different, Andy, than, as you know, you and I have talked about this before, and when I was on the show with you, we talked about this before. If you have a crime scene, no matter what anyone says, you always have to stick with the forensic evidence first. And in any crime scene, you may have other pieces of evidence, other critical pieces of evidence, other, eyewitness testimonies or whatever it might be, but you still have the forensic evidence. And I remember growing up, in grade school, watching TV, and I remember all those TV shows when I was a kid. And I could swear almost every single one of those shows, and not to mention that, but also reality, watching the news on TV growing up as a kid. It always seems to be that forensic evidence was the difference between someone going to jail or not. The forensic evidence seems to be the deal breaker as to whether you are convicted or whether you are not. So forensic evidence is the real deal. It's the main piece of evidence that you could introduce to any crime scene. So that's why I appreciate everything that Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth does, even though I myself at truthinrtv.com cover a lot of other issues. But when it comes to 9/11, the forensic issue is the number one issue. Of course, we do cover other issues, especially with truthinrtv.com and now the new group. But nevertheless, when it comes to public outreach, we find it most effective to deal with the science and educate the public about the science, because you cannot get around that. So a lot of people have tried to stop that effort, but it won't work because it is the most effective effort.
It is, and this is what the role, I believe, AE 9/11 Truth serves in the bigger information war. It is the trial expert witness to come into the stand in the courtroom of public opinion, to bring what Richard Gage has been talking about for all of these years, and all of the other experts and Experts Speak Out have been talking about, and what we talk about on the show every week, to bring that to the public's attention. And other groups can certainly use AE 9/11 Truth's information in their outreach efforts to try to wake people up about the other issues, too, that are facing us, that we hear about every day, or we should be hearing about every day from the corporate media. Sometimes it does bleed through, sometimes it stays on the back page, but people are aware there are problems here in this country. And I guess people could always say there's always been problems, but things have kind of gone into hyperdrive after 9/11, in my opinion, and in the opinion of most other people. And at the core of it, at the very center, is this event for which we have evidence showing that the buildings were brought down in controlled demolitions that day. It is so obvious. It is so in your face. It has been proven. The key is getting the public to officially acknowledge it. And a lot of people already have made that switch in their minds. They've already come to that conclusion privately. They'll talk to you about it in bars, at the water cooler, at work, but it's getting anybody in an official capacity to acknowledge it and actually do something about it that still remains the challenge. And so we still got our work cut out for us, but that's why we need the help of all sorts of groups out there, no matter what your important social issue is. If it's regarding NSA spying that you're championing, well, that's a lot of that's based on 9/11. If you got an issue with the body scanners at the airports, if that's your thing, what you focus on, well, a lot of that still is based on 9/11. So right here, this is it. This is the glue holding together, a lot of what people are advocating for out there in the world, and what people can cite as a reason for not going along with certain plans and policies and agendas here in the post 9/11 world. So that's why we got to keep on talking to each other, and people need to be visiting ae911truth.org every single day to see what's new there, see how they can help out the organization with what we're doing, because what we're doing is going to help what other organizations are doing too. So going to tabling, we say that often, and I don't know if we've ever given a description or definition of what tabling includes. So when you're talking about 9/11 and controlled demolition, what does a typical tabling look like? What do you say to people who come up to the table?
Well, we always have different flyers and brochures that are available from AE, and we have these basically a rectangular wooden block divided into two pieces. One piece represents the top of the World Trade Center, building of the North or South Tower, either one. And the bottom represents the bottom portion of the tower that was structurally in place before the freefall collapse. So we do, I do, for those that are interested, a brief simulation of how Newton's laws apply to the collapse. So I have the top block, I hold it in my hand, and we have certain markings on it indicating where the plane impacted and all that. So we explain to kids who walk by or anybody, hey, check it out. How can this top block to go through this bottom, much larger block? Can you imagine how that could happen? Where the building, and then we show them videos. Often we'll have a video monitor there, playing some highlights from quite often we actually use so I think it's the David Chandler North Tower collapse video, and we play some other videos, but we'll show them the destruction. Look at that. Is the building exploding, or is the building, and we explain the pile driver theory, which is the official NIST explanation of how it happened. So we make sure that the audience knows, hey, this is what your government is saying, how the building collapsed. Now look at this block, look at this video, look at these brochures, and try, see where that could not be. So here we are, point A, you're being lied to on how the building was destroyed. So the videos are overwhelming. People see, and I said, are you looking at a building that's exploding? Where's the top part that they're saying, in order for there to be a pile driver theory, the top part needs to be piling its way through the bottom part. Is that what you're seeing? Of course, anyone who looks at the video will say, no, I'm looking at a building that you can clearly see that the top part of the building is exploding outwards as it goes down. So nothing to do with anything even remotely resembling a pile driver theory. We also have, we'll usually have like a copy of one of the scientific papers, the thermite paper, in case people will say, well, I don't believe, we pull out the scientific paper, show them the thermite, and we'll discuss different issues. We take it on a one-on-one basis because everyone thinks differently, and they have different types of, different questions and different angles in which they approach all this. So we deal with that verbally. So we got videos, brochures. We might have some books available also. And we have some other stuff, some stickers that are available that they can grab and offer donations for. And, and it's always, and we, of course, we have different small size banners, or I don't know if you should call them standing billboards or whatever, showing different testimonies from the firefighters and different parts of 9/11, all on these different small mini-sized billboards that they can read while they're standing around the table.
Well, this doesn't sound like it's that hard to do. Do you have to get permission to set it up on the sidewalk? How do you go about getting the space to do it?
Well, it all depends where you go. So we often go, we're here in Los Angeles, so there's a city called Santa Monica out here, which is by the ocean. A lot of tourists and a lot of people come out here any time of the year. There's a promenade out here where it's a big shopping area. It's very just a block or two from the ocean, so we often table out here. So it's a free speech zone where a lot of artists and anyone who has a message is able to go to Santa Monica 3rd Street Promenade, and they can display their message. So it's a free for all for free speech, and there's always a lot of people out here. So we've been going for years. In fact, every time we do a tabling, we get people all the time like, "Hey, where you guys been? We haven't seen you guys in a while." People miss us. And I want to let everyone know, once you start doing these, you will realize that you are beloved by many people out there, are going to love that you're doing that. We get people all the time, Andy, telling us, "Hey, we love you guys. We love what you're doing, blah, blah, blah." So, and by the way, and when you compare this to years ago when we started doing these, years ago, we would get a lot of hostile responses from the general public, like, how dare you guys do this? And you're disrespecting the honor of those that lost their life, all this nonsense. So those days seem to be gone. Of course, there's always that group of people that are always going to resist what you're doing. They're still out there. So we will get some resistance every once in a while. Who knows, but that's expected. But compared to years ago, I tell people it's night and day. Nowadays, people just smile at us. Hey, a lot of times they'll take, also, by the way, I didn't mention, we'll have DVDs available at the table, which often we'll make DVDs for the tabling. So we have a tower where we will burn off so many DVDs with a few films on it. And then the list of films that are on it, usually we'll put anywhere from 3 to maybe 5 or 6 films on that DVD for the general public. We offer those DVDs only for those that want it. I think years ago we used to give them out, and then we realized that's not very economical. And especially nowadays where a lot of people watch things on the internet, they don't even use DVDs, a lot of the younger generation. So we'll have DVDs available for people to take if they want them. And what will happen is we'll have DVDs. Usually on the DVDs, the first presentation is usually something from architects and engineers. So we hit them with the science first. And then after that, we'll put in some of the other presentations, whether it be loose change or some of these other 9/11 mysteries. And if they can digest that, we start going down the rabbit hole with them for other presentations and some of the other issues going on and on and on. So we kind of give it to them like, here's the red pill. Start with the science, and then we'll walk you. Once you understand that, well, here's the next step. And then we kind of start walking them down the rabbit hole.
Well, there you go. That's the way to do it. And another thing that people can do, and I have not really publicized this like I should, but I designed an email form, very simple, where it's got an AE logo at the top, and it has some wording essentially acknowledging that if you put your email on it, then you will get email from AE 9/11 Truth, keeping you updated on all our projects, all our news, everything that's going on. And so even if you just have a quick interaction with someone, give them a general idea of what it's about, and they seem generally supportive, you can say, well, if you want to get some more information, put your email down here. And then you can send that into AE 9/11 Truth. You can write to me at Steele at ae911truth.org, and I'll tell you how you can get a digital picture of it if you don't feel like going through the United States Postal System and waiting in line or buying a stamp. There's many ways you can get that to us once you have signed up those emails, and those emails help the organization get our message out. Internet has made it so much simpler to reach people, but we got to know where those people are. So that is another very simple thing that the activists out there in the audience can do, and anybody who wants to get a hold of that form, and I need to publicize that better somehow, get that form to as many people as possible. So you can do that. There's also paper petitions. If people are wanting to sign the petition, we have available that you can have out on the table. Someone can sign it, put all their info on it, and if they're an architect or an engineer, all the better. They'll get verified by the verifications team with a phone call and checking degrees and that stuff. If it's a regular person, then they go through the process for that. But so many ways the activists can help out AE 9/11 Truth, get our message out beyond just that initial interaction that you have out there in the street. But first you got to get out there, and I've been saying this for years, we need to take it out of the realm of the internet where it's kind of contained in that glass screen in front of you, to people just complaining amongst each other, and get it out to people who are not in the choir, people who are not active. Because Bernie is right. The whole tone has changed. When it comes up, what I do when I meet new people, you wouldn't believe how many people say, yeah, I agree with you. I watched something on that a year ago or 2 years ago, and I was just blown away. And good for you that you do this. So, yeah, it totally is different from when I first started.
It is. And, to kind of bring together everything you're saying, first of all, yes, that's another function of the tables is that you're physically there, you're smiling with them, and they see the energy of the truth movement. It's there in front of them. And just being out there is a motivational factor to them, to the people that are walking by, because it kind of makes them look at themselves. Because some of the people that walk by that are aware of this information, they're kind of like, they always give us a thumbs up, like, wow, I'm really proud of what you guys are doing. It's like they're living their activism life vicariously through us. And it's like they kind of wish that they were with us in some way. They sort of feel guilty that they're not with us. So there's that motivational factor. As you said, the tables provide a platform to, boost up your email list for sure. Hey, we get people all the time like, how can I get a hold of you guys? We say, hey, here's our card or here's our number or sign our email list. Exactly. So it's a hands-on, face-to-face opportunity to share the truth, and it's just a whole nother ballgame above and beyond internet. And I think the key to really good activism, Andy, is for people to realize that we, take everything in a multi-dimensional fashion. Realize, like I was talking to somebody on my newsletter list for truthandrtv.com, and she was saying, well, I love your articles and all that, but you have to realize there's a whole young generation, they want to see more videos. So I told her, well, I do make some, I make videos too, and I put them on YouTube for my channel, but I focus more on articles for my own reasons. But she's right, and, it's both. People have to realize it's a multi-dimensional thing. You have people out there that respond to videos. These kids out there, a lot of them have attention deficit or whatever, they need videos. And I tell people, well, the video's being made by someone who did the reading. Okay, fine. And then you have others that would rather read an article. But to add to everything we're saying, Andy, you have others who they respond to a face, to a table, to an actual person in front of them saying, look, let me tell you about this story. And let me tell you about look at this evidence. So, so the key thing is to remember that all of these components exist at the same time. So to really get a message out, you want to have some sort of internet presence and realize that the internet is available. A lot of people rely on the internet. They rely on, videos. But then some of them rely on articles. They just want to read an article and then, okay, now I know. And then there's other people that are going to want, they get impressed. They're out there shopping and sure enough, boom, there's a table right there with some truth on there, and that's going to intrigue them because it's real. It's there in front of them. So no one should get caught in the, what I call, unipolar or with unilateral thinking or, just thinking, single dimensional thinking where you think it's only one way of doing it and then you're missing out on the other 2 or 3 ways. So you want to focus on everything because these people are out there and everyone sees the world differently and everyone has a different preference and a different, different preference as to how they receive information and how they retain it and how they're impressed. So, that's a big point I want to make about this whole effort. And then you get into that, and that's all of the stuff we're talking about, Andy, is completely separate from truth to power. And by the way, in this new group that I'm organizing now, I'm explaining this to the group, and people should remember, you have educational effort to the public, you have educational effort for the group itself, some sort of once-a-month meeting where people can share questions and all. But then you have this whole other effort where the effort truth to power and the educational and communication effort with those elected officials and those in power, whether it's police or elected or whoever it is. That's completely separate from your outreach to the public. So I'm urging the group and kind of sharing this information with everyone to, organizing how you're going to plan your attack, if you want to use that word, attacking people with the truth, informational truth. It should be organized and, separate what you're trying to do, know the different components of it. And then that's how things, when it all comes together, where you will be most effective by treating these outreaches separately and realizing they all have different purposes. And so I just want to share that.
All right. Well, part of my teacher training for Peace Corps, that was part of my basic training, I guess you can call it, for the first 3 months that you're there, but it was for my job, which was being a teacher. And one thing you learn is everybody learns differently, and you tend to teach the way that you learn. But that's the reason that if you remember back to elementary and middle school, high school, the teachers would go about teaching the same subject in different ways. So one day you may have a book that you have to read, or a chapter out of the book, and then you have to write an essay on it, and then you watch a video on it, and then you might see some kind of illustrated guide talking about it. And the reason is not because the teacher necessarily finds all this stuff interesting, it's because they're reaching out to the different kinds of learners within the classroom. So someone like Bernie's saying may be more receptive to a video. They're not going to necessarily read the book or take it in. They may just read through the process and kind of go through the motions, but not take in the info. Another person may have to take it home and actually read it themselves. I know myself, I never used to pay attention in class, hardly. I would just take home the book and teach it to myself and report back to class and pass the tests. That's the way I did things. There's probably people out there in the public who do that with this information regarding 9/11. May not take it all in on their own, but they may take home a copy of Beyond Misinformation, let it sink in, read a few paragraphs from it, and think about it for a while, and then continue reading it, and then come to their own conclusion, oh my God, we got a problem here with the official story. So that's why we need so many different approaches. And you can look at it, if you really look at it as an information war, then what are we? We're an army. Well, let's look at the United States Army. They've got different divisions. They've got soldiers doing different things. Yeah, there's infantrymen out there, but there's also people who are specialists in computers, people who are specialists in the medical, saving lives out there. It's all broken up by specialties. So there is a place for everybody in this information war. If you conceive of an idea, you should do it. Even if you're a singer, a songwriter, if you're an artist, if you are an accountant, I'm sure that there's something that you could do in your interactions to get the word out. We're thinking of new ways all of the time. And you mentioned something about the young people. I think that is truly important. We got a lot of young people coming up right now who may have been toddlers when 9/11 happened or not even born. First of all, I want to get your take on the importance of reaching out to young people, and what are some of the ways that, in particular with young people, you have reached out that you found successful?
Well, with young people, Andy, I think what we have here, when we say young people here today in 2016, we're talking about these, a lot of people call them the millennials. These kids that are younger, like you said, they have a disconnection to 9/11. And I can relate to their disconnection to 9/11 in my life in the same way that I was disconnected from the JFK assassination. I wasn't there when JFK, John F. Kennedy, President Kennedy was assassinated. So I never looked into it. I was disconnected from the event. It wasn't real to me. It was just this thing, some president got shot and who cares, whatever. I wasn't there. So I suspect that this generation feels the same way. Okay, some the buildings were blown up and everybody's running around, whatever, that happened then. I wasn't around in those days, whatever. So with young people, because of that, like you just said, they respond often to videos. I like to get their gauge on it. I think it's important to convey this information with alacrity, I call it, with that confidence, and you show them that this is, something that's been happening all along, but that, always want to offer them hope. Say, hey, you want to be one of the smart people, you always want to present it in a positive way with these young people so they can say, okay, in other words, hey, if you understand this will make you cool. You'll be one of the smart people. So you always want to present it somehow in a positive way. Not in a paranoid kind of way, because once you do that, you're playing into the intelligence mainstream media psyop, where they want to present, they always paint truthers to be these paranoid conspiracy theorists. So you don't want to play into that. You want to play into no, actually, this is pretty easy, guys. And you want to be explaining to them how easy this is, obvious to see. And again, positive, smiling alacrity, with confidence. Hey, look, guys, this is easy. If you don't know this, come on, man, check it out. Move on to the others. So that usually, they get it, that you should get it right away. When you get that message, I'm like, look, this is so easy. This is 1 + 1 = 2, my man. So that kind of thing. So that's one of the things we do. Again, keeping in mind that, their minds are young. So, we have a thing now where we're working on an idea to kind of, I noticed that the young people respond to sarcasm, this new generation. Mm-hmm. So we're working on some ideas here in LA, possibly for some T-shirts, some messages, something to the effect of like, imagine somebody wearing a T-shirt that says the government never lies, or, believe mainstream, something that's obvious, that's sarcastic, but kind of hits home. The young people they click with stuff like that. So, something where, people like comedy and sarcasm. It the message gets in a little better. So rather than keeping it so dull and scientific and, serious, too serious. They don't like being serious, so you hit them with something light, and something that makes them laugh, maybe even, so that works. So to answer your question, but yeah, people can find out what they think will work. Also, with young people, you always have to remember that they're always being bombarded by government propaganda. I mean, the young people are targeted from the minute they're born all the way through any given day. I mean, you're talking about school system and how they brainwash kids in school and all that. So they're constantly being, pandered to by government propaganda entities, that are constantly bombarding their mind, whether it's video games, distractions, entertainment, mainstream media, billboards. Young people are getting inundated with propaganda all the time. So you want to take a page from their system, whether it's entertainment. I do music here in LA. People respond to music. Also people respond to art. That's why I have my system, my website, Truth and Art. But, people have to just try different things. But, I think that's the kind of things they will respond to.
So what do you do about cynicism? This is something that you run into. I see this in particular with people who may have been hostile to us back in the day, but now see our point, generally agree, but say, well, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do? It's a big world. Terrible things happen all the time. And that was a long time ago. Let's just move on. How do you overcome that apathetic attitude?
Well, people that say that need to realize that there is such a thing called learned helplessness. Have them look that up. And that's what that is. That's what you're describing. And yeah, it's a very real phenomenon, Andy, and you better believe it. Some people have accepted this helpless situation. And, well, I tell them, if for no other reason, think about the future. Think about, your children, where you want them to be. And you decide if it means a lot to you. If it doesn't, then, again, what do you do? I mean, you can only tell them, like they, what is it? I always jokingly throw this out, like the Oracle in the movie The Matrix. If anybody who's watched the movie The Matrix, I always equate myself to the Oracle, the lady. The Oracle doesn't pander to you. She doesn't beg you to believe anything. She just tells you, I'm just telling you what you need to hear. She's very neutral, very, very wise, slow speaking. She only tells you what you need to hear. So often when it's all said and done, Andy, I tell people, if I think someone's not listening or, hey, don't mind me, I'm just telling you what you need to hear. Goodbye. And you got to leave it at that, and you just drop the seed and move on. And maybe somebody else will wake. In the end, you can't yourself. That's the other thing. All truth seekers and activists, listen up. You cannot wake everyone up yourself. It's not going to happen. So often what you find yourself is simply dropping seeds and planting seeds. That's it. That means that person's not ready yet. So all you can do is show them the evidence, tell them what they need to hear, and move on. Stop trying to convince them. You're not going to convince them. especially if they're part of your family. Then you're really never going to convince, oh, that's so-and-so. Oh, that's my brother talking again. I'm not going to listen to him. Or that's my, family. I tell people, if it's family, forget about it. It's not going to happen. They're not going to listen to you because they're trained to not believe Uncle so-and-so or whoever, they've already set their minds on not believing or not letting themselves be entirely convinced by you. But you're still planting that seed, and somebody else may take them to the other end, push them over the top. So a lot of times it takes years, but you got to just keep planting seeds. You cannot expect that you're going to convince everyone. That's what I tell them.
That's an interesting thing you say about family. I remember being a little kid. We didn't have cable, and we had one of those TVs where you could only go up to channel 20, and then you had to go to the bottom knob to go beyond channel 20. And I discovered, because I was just a kid, I would dial the little dial to as far as I could go, just for the heck of it. No other reason. And I discovered that there was a channel 33. It was the beginning of Fox. And I told people that it existed, and nobody believed me. Everybody thought I was making up stories, and it took like a month for when my older brother finally walked into the room and saw me watching it for anyone to acknowledge that this channel existed on the TV screen. And I think it was because people were programmed, because I was the youngest and I was just a little kid, that, oh, well, he's just a little kid, he's not, don't take him seriously that this exists. Now, this is over a silly thing like a TV channel existing, but I think this applies to bigger issues like this. And if your family and friends know you as a certain person, they may have been programmed to not listen to you because, oh, who is he? He's like the younger brother, he's like my son, or this. What he's saying can't be serious, whether they consciously know that or not, know that they're doing that or not. I think a lot of that is playing into the dynamic too, is that they may just be programmed not to take you seriously because they know you, they grew up with you, they just knew you as that little kid and may even still think of you like that too. But what you're saying about being involved, I think part of it too is just enjoying the process, enjoying being part of the whole movement here. I was talking to someone recently who volunteers for a multiple sclerosis charity. Now, as far as I know, they don't have a cure for multiple sclerosis, and I don't know if they're close to it or not. But this person still goes and does it, enjoys doing it. It's a part of her activities and something that she's very proud of. And even if they don't have a cure coming out for it next week, she still does it, and she enjoys it, and there's a social aspect to it. And you got to think about 9/11 Truth in the same way. Think of it as a disease that we haven't found a cure for yet, but that doesn't mean you stop caring about the disease and trying to find a cure for it and helping charities that try to find a cure for it. You still participate, you still take part, and you do your part to help out in the cause. And that's how we have to think of it. We can't just think, oh, because we don't have a new investigation next week or a week after you start volunteering and doing activism, that you're just going to quit. This is part of a bigger thing. And of course there's the three-dimensional aspect too, because when you wake up people to 9/11, you wake them up to other issues as well. So that's the attitude we need to take, and we need to just chill out a little bit and be in it for the long haul and be willing to do that work, this is how change happens. It doesn't happen swiftly, it happens slowly. Even if it seems to happen swiftly at certain moments in history, there's usually a lot of work that you didn't see that took place over many years to make that happen. So that's my attitude towards the cynicism. So we're getting towards the end of this interview, and I'll let you comment on that and any other thoughts you want to leave the audience with before we close out.
Well, yeah, I agree. I think that the driving force in this activism thing that you're talking about, I have concluded, it's a factor of how much that person cares about humanity as a whole versus how much they're consumed with their own self and pleasure-seeking self. This whole me, and selfishness and lack of empathy. A lot of people today are consumed with the selfism and, me and pleasure-seeking, and they only care about themselves. So that plays a big role in all this. Whereas if you really care about humanity, the one thing that I've noticed about activists, people that stick to the battlefield, is that there's a genuine concern for humanity and a genuine concern to see the truth come out. But you want to approach all of this with a sense of history and I've written about this many times in the past. You want to have a altruistic sense of history, and you want to be rooted in your own values as we speak, with regard to your care for humanity, this generic altruistic care for humanity. It's got to be there, a genuine care for humanity. If you genuinely don't care, well, there's your problem. And that's, the difference. That's, I think, the factor that separates people that stick to the battlefield and are true activists versus people that simply don't care. And that inability to care about humanity is directly linked, I believe, with ignorance, which is where the media and the educational system, once you're ignorant about what's happening, and you get bombarded by entertainment and media and the TV and the whole signal and all the stuff they're doing nowadays, not to mention medications and all the distractions that are going, well, all those things push you towards a selfish world where only your little world matters. And that's one of the big things that we're dealing with, Andy. When we talk about people that don't want to join the truth movement, don't want to be active, it's that genuine concern. They're so busy and consumed with entertainment and themselves that they don't have time to care about humanity and about truth. That's the separating factor.
Right, and I think if anyone's listening to this show right now, they do care about humanity, they do care about the truth, so they've already got a leg up on all the other people around them who don't, and so you're just going to need to take that next step and do something, do anything, contact AE 911 Truth and volunteer, do whatever you can to help get this information out there and do something good for humanity during your time on this planet. Bernie, I want to thank you for coming on 9/11 Freefall.
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate it.
This program's on every Thursday night on No Lies Radio at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. You can also download MP3s of this show from the Internet Archive by going to 911freefall.com. This is Andy Steele saying have a great week and good luck.